Khayyam Nishapuri was not only a great poet and philosopher, but also the real father of trigonometry in the world of mathematics. With his curious and brilliant mind, he expanded the boundaries of mathematics in the 11th century and developed new concepts in trigonometry that later became the foundation for many more complex math principles. Khayyam was the first person to solve cubic equations using geometric and algebraic methods, and amazingly redefined the rules of trigonometry. His achievements in mathematics were revolutionary for his time, and their impact lasted for centuries in the history of math. Khayyam laid down the mathematical foundations that today serve as the base for much of modern mathematics and computations used across all industries and technologies. He created the basic concepts shaping today's world of industry and tech. Khayyam Nishapuri is one of the most prominent figures in the history of Iranian science and philosophy, who besides his global fame in poetry and philosophy, also made a huge contribution to mathematics. He lived in the 11th century and was among the most outstanding mathematicians and philosophers of his time. One of his major achievements in math was his work on trigonometry and algebra. Khayyam is known not only as a poet and philosopher, but also left a lasting legacy as a great mathematician. Khayyam played a key role in trigonometry that is less talked about today. While most people know him as a unique poet and writer, his scientific achievements, especially in geometry and trigonometry, have had a great impact on the history of math. He was the first to independently use geometry and algebra to solve cubic equations. This achievement was revolutionary for his time and made many complicated math problems easier. One of Khayyam's most important studies in trigonometry was finding the relationships between angles and the lengths of triangle sides. He managed to solve some trigonometric equations that were difficult for mathematicians at that time in a geometric way. In fact, Khayyam was the founder of a geometric method for solving cubic equations, which was completely innovative at that time. Moreover, Khayyam extensively used algebra and geometry to study problems like areas, volumes, and angle relationships, achieving amazing results that were later expanded by other mathematicians. Khayyam was also a pioneer in the field of calendars and played a key role in reforming the Jalali calendar, which was even more accurate than the Gregorian calendar. This calendar, used in Iran, is still in use today and is considered one of the most accurate calendars in history. This achievement shows the wide range of Khayyam's talents in various scientific fields. But alongside these scientific accomplishments, Khayyam is also famous worldwide for his quatrains, Rubaiyat. His Rubaiyat doesn't just touch on philosophy, life, and death. They also indirectly reflect his mathematical and scientific insights. In fact, these works are like a mirror of his deep and complex thoughts across different areas, including science and philosophy. Although Khayyam wasn't widely recognized during his lifetime, today he is seen as one of the greatest figures in the history of science and literature, both in Iran and the world. His scientific and philosophical works are still studied as a valuable legacy in various fields, and his influence on science and the arts remains visible in the modern world. Khayyam was born on May 18, 1048, 28 Ordihesht 427 in the Iranian calendar, in Nishapur, one of the major scientific and cultural centers of Greater Khorasan. In the 11th century, Nishapur was a thriving city in terms of science and culture. Its schools, libraries, and scholarly gatherings were flourishing, creating the perfect environment for nurturing Khayyam's genius. From a young age, he showed a deep passion for learning, and his exceptional talent quickly caught the attention of his teachers. He received his early education in Nishapur and studied a wide range of subjects including Islamic jurisprudence, theology, philosophy, logic, mathematics, and astronomy. Historical sources like Chahar Makala by Nizami Aruzi mention two of Khayyam's contemporaries and likely schoolmates, Hassan Saba, founder of the Nizari Ismaili sect, and Khwaja Nizam al-Mulk Tusi, the famed vizier of the Seljuks. According to a well-known story, the three made a pact in their youth that if any of them rose to power, he would not forget the others. Khwaja Nizam al-Mulk eventually became vizier and, staying true to his promise, supported Khayyam so he could pursue his studies and research in peace. Despite his exceptional abilities, Khayyam never sought power, status, or wealth. He lived a relatively simple life, spending most of his time studying, writing, and reflecting on deep philosophical and scientific ideas. Although he was occasionally invited by the Seljuk court for official duties, he never became part of the political power structure. It is said that in response to an offer of a high position, He simply asked for peace to live and freedom to think and study. Unlike some poets, Khayyam didn't view poetry as a profession, but rather as a tool for expressing his philosophical and existential thoughts. Many of his quatrains explore fundamental questions about life, death, destiny, and the nature of existence. Many of Khayyam's scientific contributions and innovations gained attention in Europe centuries later and left a lasting impact on global mathematics and calendar science. However, Khayyam's greatest mathematical achievement lies in his efforts to solve cubic equations. Khayyam was the first scholar to systematically classify cubic equations. He categorized them into 14 different types based on their terms and signs, and provided geometric solutions for many of them. Ingeniously, he used the intersections of conic sections, cones, parabolas, and circles to find the roots of these equations. This highly advanced method was rediscovered and further developed centuries later by Western mathematicians such as Descartes and Fermat. What's fascinating is that Khayyam used these methods long before analytical mathematics and modern algebra had even emerged. In a way, he anticipated the idea that solving equations requires a combination of geometric and algebraic tools, an approach that later became the foundation of modern mathematics. One of Khayyam's most significant projects was his involvement in the creation of the Jalali calendar. During the reign of the Seljuk king Malik Shah, and at the suggestion of Khwaja Nizam al-Mulk, a group of prominent astronomers and mathematicians, including Khayyam, gathered to design a precise calendar for Iran. The Jalali calendar later became the basis for the solar Hijri calendar, which is still used today in Iran and Afghanistan. For this reason, Omar Khayyam is considered one of the founding fathers of modern timekeeping. Khayyam was not only skilled in theoretical astronomy, but also excelled in practical work, such as observing the sky and calculating the positions of stars. He spent several years studying and observing in the city of Ray, which housed one of the most respected observatories of the time. In those days, astronomy was still intertwined with astrology. However, Khayyam, with his scientific approach, sought to separate the two and establish astronomy as a precise and independent science. His views stood in stark contrast to superstition and unscientific interpretations of the heavens. In addition to his remarkable scientific stature, Omar Khayyam must be recognized as one of Iran's greatest philosophical thinkers. Although he never referred to himself as a philosopher, and at times even criticized excessive philosophical speculation, his scientific works and poetry clearly reflect deep philosophical contemplation that was far ahead of his time. Drawing on logic and observation, Khayyam re-examined fundamental concepts such as existence, time, death, destiny, and creation. To him, the world is not necessarily logical and orderly. It is full of ambiguity, randomness, and apparent meaninglessness. This understanding of life makes Khayyam one of the earliest thinkers to lean toward a form of philosophical skepticism in opposition to the dogmatic certainties of his era's theology. One of the most important features of Khayyam's thought is that he does not seek final or absolute answers. He asks questions courageously, even if he has no answers at hand. Some scholars have compared Khayyam to philosophers such as Socrates, Epicurus, Schopenhauer, and even Nietzsche. His similarity with Epicurus lies in his call for rational pleasure and the avoidance of unnecessary suffering. There are also parallels between Khayyam's ideas and the absurdism found in the works of Kafka and Camus. But unlike Nietzsche, Khayyam is neither harsh nor aggressive. He is a contemplative and conscious thinker who, while recognizing the darkness, strives to find a light for life. Today, Omar Khayyam is known above all for his quatrains, Rubaiyat. These short and powerful poems have inspired people for centuries, from Iranian philosophers and artists to Western writers. Khayyam's quatrains cover a wide variety of themes. For example, Khayyam repeatedly reminds us of the cruelty and instability of the world. In his view, time is like a flood that waits for no one. For Khayyam, death is an undeniable truth. Rather than fearing it, he tries to accept it and give value to life. Khayyam often points to the duality and hypocrisy of religious figures. Nothing in me, he believes that many rule others in the name of religion while being committed to their own hearts. And finally, two of Khayyam's quatrains that are especially profound and rich in meaning. If you don't drink wine, don't mock the ones who do. Don't build your world on tricks and cunning too. Be not so proud of abstaining from the coop, would bow down to you, feast on foods that win. These verses are a direct critique of human lifestyle and hypocrisy. A drop of water joined the boundless sea, a speck of dust merged with Earth's unity. What is your coming and going in this world? And vanished instantly. A fly appeared. Century English. Omar Khayyam's global fame is largely owed to Edward Fitzgerald, the 19th poet and translation of Khayyam's quatrains in a poetic and liberal pet. In 1859, he translated and published a style, introduced the beauty of lush. Rather than a literal translation, it was a poetic interpretation that Khayyam's philosophy to Western readers. Fitzgerald's translation of Khayyam's quatrains had a profound impact on Western literature and philosophy. Figures such as Mark Twain, Thomas Hardy, Bertrand Russell, Hermann Hesse, T.S. Eliot, all were influenced by Khayyam. Some Western writers considered Khayyam the first pre-modern existentialist, someone who finds meaning in the moment, not out of despair, but out of insight. Khayyam can be seen as one of the earliest thinkers who, without openly rejecting religion, posed deep questions about God, creation, meaning, and death. Unlike theologians who aim to justify religion, he stands more as an observer and thinker. Here, Khayyam is recognized as a bridge between traditional Eastern thought and modern Western philosophy. Through poetry, he addressed themes that would later become foundations of Western existentialism: the impermanence of being, the anxiety of death, and the search for meaning. Khayyam's quatrains, with their astonishing simplicity and depth, have built a bridge between cultures and philosophies. He conveyed complex philosophical ideas in concise and beautiful words that can serve as a shared language among generations and nations. The translation of Khayyam's quatrains and their global reception are clear examples of how one culture's ideas can deeply influence others. Khayyam remains a global figure who conveys messages of life, doubt, and joy to all humanity. Khayyam was a full-fledged scholar whose works in mathematics and astronomy had a significant impact on the history of science. The fusion of art and science in his life has made Khayyam a multidimensional and inspiring figure today. Omar Khayyam spent most of his life in Nishapur. In solitude, he studied philosophical texts, wrote, and perhaps reflected further on death and the meaning of life. Some of his quatrains belong to this period and bear a more philosophical and mystical tone. Khayyam passed away around 517 AH 1131 CE in the city of Nishapur. Today, Khayyam's tomb in Nishapur is a lush garden filled with trees and flowers, enhanced with modern architecture. This tomb has become one of Iran's most important cultural and tourist attractions, and stands as a symbol of Khayyam's immortality. And this was Khayyam's vision, a poet who cried out the joy of life from the heart of doubt and philosophy, not in search of a promise in the heavens, but for a sip of joy on earth. His memory is cherished, for he still invites us to think and to live. In the end, Khayyam was the bold voice of a questioner in a world full of imitative answers. Someone who, centuries ago, dared to question the mysteries of existence, death, time, and God. Not out of disbelief, but from honesty with himself and the pursuit of truth. Khayyam doesn't merely invite us to hedonism, but conveys a profound philosophy through poetry. That life is short, the future uncertain, and truth often hidden behind a veil of illusion and habit. In a world where most people are trapped in the past or drowned in tomorrow's promises, Khayyam calls us to the present moment, to live, to drink, to love, to see, and to think. He shouts,